Jennifer Te Atamira Ward-Lealand. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Thank you so much for coming to my home today to hang out in Te Kōrero. This is super fun. I actually am really excited to talk to you about all sorts of things, and I kind of don't know where to start. Shall we start with you being a sort of silver sister?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just turned 60.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
You look amazing.
I love it.
And you are living your life. I mean, just getting our moment of time to Kōrero today has been quite a beautiful dance of this schedule and that schedule and these things and that things. And actually I get it, because life is quite a jigsaw.
It is, and I feel so grateful to have so much change in my life. So I get all these different experiences. Firstly, being an actress and getting to dive into all these different worlds. But secondly, all the different things I experience from the other sort of branches of my work, which all kind of come from the same source. But they just take me to places I never would have thought imaginable.
So can we take it like time travel right back?
Let's do that.
And how do you get into, like, just the microcosm of you as a young woman who approaches acting and sees your life going in a certain trajectory?
Yes, so we have to go back even further than a young woman to a girl. So 7 years old, my father was in a production of Oedipus, and this was at a theatre called Unity Theatre, which is now Bats Theatre in Wellington.
Wow, cool.
And they needed some children in this production. It was a very avant-garde, so I'm thinking 1969 was, and avant-garde production. And he took me up there to the rehearsal room, me and my sister. And I had the first of my probably 4 kind of major epiphanies of my life that this was where I should be, this was where I belonged. And I went home and told Mum that I was going to be an actor. So from 7, it's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't know how to do that, but that's what I wanted. So everything sort of drove me from that first bolt in the heart.
Wow. And I guess it's not when people have an epiphany like that, it's not a smooth road towards that end goal.
Well, no, I guess you just have to follow your want, really, follow your heart. So I went into, drama classes and pantomimes and musicals and things as a child, and then did a bit of radio and close to home and downstage youth theatre when I was a teenager, and then got to, well, let's say 17, the second epiphany, sitting up there in the cheap seats at Downstage Theatre where I'd been ushering, selling programs, waitressing when it was a theatre restaurant, and saw Theatre Corporate, which was an Auckland theatre company, come down and do a production of Metamorphosis, and I sat up there and I went, wow, whatever they're doing, I'm going there. I am going there. They were now firmly on my radar because there was something about the approach to the work, about the true ensemble nature of the work that I had never seen before. And
what was it that captured you about the ensemble work?
I don't know, the production was just so exquisite. It's like everybody lived and breathed that play so that it could sing in the best way that it could for us as the audience. And it's not that every production doesn't strive for that, but it was, I don't even know if I could articulate it as a 17-year-old, except that it leapt straight into my heart. Now, I ended up not being able to audition for their biennial drama school, which was attached to the theatre company, because I'd by then at 18 got a job with a little touring theatre company. However, I went to a summer school, and at that summer school that they ran, Theatre Corporate ran, Raymond Hawthorne said to me at the last day, he said, go and ask Paul Menifee, who was directing at the theatre there, if you can join the theatre, the drama school. And I remember sitting there with my knife and fork on the very last day, and there was Paul sitting to my right, and I thought, it's now or never, Jennifer. Say it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And I said, Paul, Raymond said to ask you if I could go to the drama school. Now, this was summer, so it was going to be the following February. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, let me think about that. So I went back to Wellington. Oh my God, is it going to happen? Then I had to ring my boss and say, look, I might be going to drama school. And he said, well, you can't until we've finished this contract. So then I had to ring Paul back and say, and if you did decide to have me, then I would have to come 3 weeks late. And anyway, all the stars aligned, and I did get accepted into that school, and thus began my Auckland adventure. So from 19 onwards, I started living here. And it's the best place I ever could have gone. It was a lot of discipline. It made me a very robust actor. Probably our warm-ups were longer than our actual classes. If I wasn't there by 8 a.m. warming up on our crappy floor with the splinters,
Are we doing physical warm-ups, vocal warm-ups? What's
everything, physical warm-up, vocal warm-up, ready for the whole day's work, And then after
when
that...
did class start? If you're warming
9 o'clock.
Okay, so an hour of warm-up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, so you were ready, and then went straight into the company after that. Mm-hmm. And essentially for years, between Theatre Corporate and the Mercury, I did play after play after play after play after play for years.
So you just practiced your trade. You honed it and sharpened it and
you apply your
extended
craft.
it.
Yep, you're on the green the whole time. So if you're rehearsing one in the day, you're performing another one at night. And then get that one on, the next one starts to rehearse. So the trajectory of your craft in your career is very steep, as opposed to the poor darling young actors who come out now, and if they're lucky they get one play. They don't get the continual practice. So we were doing everything from Shakespeare's to modern plays to musicals to latest international works coming out of London.
Was the company ever in danger? Like these days it seems like this radio station might be shut, or this company might go out of business, or this play might go bust.
Well, it was different times here prior to 1991 and the Employment Contracts Act. So I was on year-long contracts. They don't exist anymore. The whole user pays things came in. Companies ceased to exist. 86 Theatre Corporate closed. In the 90s, early 90s, Mercury closed. So the idea of a theatre company just went. Mm-hmm. So, which is a deep shame. So I'm almost the last of that generation who got to have that kind of work experience.
Can I take you back again to the 7 and 17-year-old and say, you said you've got to follow your want, you've got to follow your heart. What gave you the strength as a young woman to follow your want?
Because
it sounds courageous to me.
It's not really when you know it deep in your soul, though, is it? It's the same thing with learning Te Reo Māori. It's the same one. That's the other epiphany. I'm doing this, and that's been my driver. And so the 17-year-old was only following what the 7-year-old wanted. It's just the 17-year-old found the best outlet for it.
And maybe too, when we say follow our want, we don't have the end in mind, do we? We just
no.
have the beginning in mind.
Absolutely. You don't know how you're going to do this. I don't know what it looks like. I could have never said, and I know we'll talk about this later, but I could have never told you that 13 or 12 years after starting my Te Reo journey, that I'd be directing a show in Te Reo, or being an actor in Te Reo, or working on new plays, or so much of my work life, or intimacy coordinating on Te Reo Māori series, that my work and my love of Te Reo have collided was not an end goal in any way. The goal was to learn the language.
Tell me how that... So I've got two of your epiphanies, 7 and 17.
Yes. Okay, so I have to give you a little context around that.
I love horopaki, so feel free.
So me whakawhānui tēnei kōrero. So I was very lucky to grow up in inner city Wellington, and my school was Te Aro, and we had two wonderful Māori teachers. So we sang waiata from a very early age. When I do community talks and stuff, which I do a lot, I'm often asking who had anything around Te Reo or Te Ao Māori in their primary school, and sometimes you get people like 10%, sometimes you get 40%, and that's dependent on what years, when things were happening in New Zealand. But anyway, I think this was purely driven by my teachers, and they took us to Māori Club.
Wow, cool.
Every week or month. And so the sound and the feel of Te Reo was in my ears from a young child. But of course, the embers were just quietly just sort of simmering there, burning away there. So let's jump forward. And look, I always knew that it wasn't when I was, or if I was going to learn Te Reo Māori, it was when. Mm-hmm. So let's jump forward a long way to year 2000, and Michael was directing a film called Jubilee, wonderful film with a lot of great Māori actors. And it was Michael's birthday, so I went out to set to join them for lunch. And of course, all the Māori actors got together to give a mihi and the waiata. And then ka huri rātou ki a mātou, they turned to us. Ka tahi ka whakanu, ka ngū mātou katoa. So we were I just didn't know how properly to respond. Any song that I knew, any waiata that I knew, ka rere atu I taku hinengaro, it just left my brain. And I knew at that moment, I went, I am never doing this again. This is insane that I'm not familiar enough with what is an everyday occurrence in Aotearoa. However, at that time I had a 3-year-old and maybe a 1-year-old. Mm-hmm. So things were very busy and I was working a lot. And, so 2008, I finally went, I'm starting. And I went off to Unitec, and for 4 years I did 1 night a week at a night school. And then I gave myself a kick up the pants and said, come on, Jennifer, you're going to be 80 and not be able to string a conversation together. What are you going to do about it? I'm quite good at driving myself.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't really need people hitting me with a stick to do things.
You hit yourself with a stick.
If I want it. So I took myself off to Te Wānanga o Aotearoa for a part-time course, and then a whole year, and then AUT for a couple of years, and back to Te Wānanga. So it was really over kind of between 2008 2016 that I did a lot of more formal education, plus kura reo all the way through that. So, I knew I was in for the long run. And it was, of that year of Rūmaki,
which is a full immersion.
Yeah.
Course where
I probably woke every morning and went, it's too hard. Get out the door. But and forcing myself to, and I thank my actor self for being able to stand up in front of groups of people, really. And my actor memory and my ability to play the ukulele, and because that saved me so many times. I went, okay, you just prepare, you get your song written, you rehearse it, and you stand up there and you do it. So thank goodness for my actor brain. Yeah, it's
amazing what we bring to the table, because
yes.
There's talk about, like, to interrupt, like the trajectory of this story and this epiphany. It's there's language trauma. So for people in classes with, I'm like in a Te Reo Māori class as a white person going, oh goody, I get to learn Māori, yeah. This is so exciting, yeah. I'm going to unlock more of the treasure that is New Zealand and the culture and the tangata whenua, and then I'm sitting next to somebody who's like, I'm Māori, I should be able to speak Māori, this is terrible, I don't even have my own language, yeah. And there's all that that pain, and yet at the same time we're like, it's good for me to know that. It's good for me not, follow somebody on Instagram who's talking about language trauma and talking about how Pākehā sit in the learning space and how we don't take up, like inviting us, warning us, yeah. Challenging us, not to take up all the space, not to ask all the questions, not to be, pulling all the pieces apart and explaining every word. And I like that learning with understanding. For myself as a person who can communicate in English, it's very humbling.
Absolutely. Me noho whakaiti. We need to sit in humility.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
it's easy. It's easier to sit in humility when you just can't speak.
Yes, absolutely. And as Pākehā, we don't bring baggage to the table. We have no, as you say, intergenerational language trauma. What is it? 1 generation to lose it, 3 to get it back. So it's something I'm often talking about when people say, a Pākehā say to me, how can I learn? And I say, well, don't fill up all the classes, because the Māori there who need to reclaim their language as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a privilege to learn. I feel like I started and was doing 1 day a week and for 2 years, and then I was doing 3 days a week for 1 year, and then I couldn't keep it all balanced. And if I've taken anything from Tao Māori, it's whānau first. And so when my son needed more of me, I let the language active learning lie. And so I can't wait to take it up again.
Yes.
Because I would love to hold a conversation. Like, people will look at me and say, oh, you speak Māori. And I'm like, not even a little bit. But I've got kupu. I've got some words, some sentences. But I can't hold a functioning conversation in Te Reo Māori.
And it's a tricky one because for everybody you need to practice it. And I have seen people go into urumaki and then they don't have opportunities afterwards to keep the language. Nō reira, ka ngaro haere. Ka ngaro haere te reo. The language gets lost.
Yeah.
So there I go, well, how lucky that I'm working often with Māori. So, and sometimes they're Māori with really good reo, and sometimes they're people on a language journey, like all of us. So, you cut your coat to suit your cloth.
Yes, I was going to get that backwards. So you took the language up, I guess, after that birthday, that ability to recognise you didn't know how to respond in the situation you wanted to respond. And that was that's an 8-year journey that, again, you didn't know the ending of. But there's something, is it the discipline of your early years, or is it the combination of your head and your heart and your will that moves you through quite significant mihi, significant pieces of work? And
I think it's the latter, Petra, the head and heart and will. I think that's what does it. Plus, at the core of it, it's my love for the reo. It's my love for the things I do. It's my love of empathy, because actually when I look at all of the things that I've done, it actually comes from a place of empathy, building empathy. Because when you explore things as a performer, when you mirror back to audiences what it is to be human, and people feel that on a subconscious or unconscious level, you get authentic communion. And there you get empathy. And I think that's one of the greatest qualities that is often missing in our life. And I think with Te Reo, it's a language that's beautiful, poetic, deep as anything. Naughty, rude, funny, wicked, sexy. It's kind of got everything I want in a language.
Yeah. So good. Does Michael speak Te Reo?
He started learning. He got a little more frightened of it though. But he certainly, when I speak to him, he can understand some of what I'm saying. But he doesn't speak. No, he would never say he could speak.
No.
And the children, of course, were old. They just kind of tipped over that point where, when I was able to properly communicate, that they were starting to, have their teenage lives and stuff. But they've got really good accents.
Yeah,
they've got a good mita.
Well, it took me. I loved hearing you say that because of your early childhood education, you had the vowels, you had the sounds inside your tinana, inside your body. I didn't. It felt like it took me 2 years to hear the vowel sounds.
Yes.
And so for somebody who is an achiever personality, probably somebody who sets a goal or goes for something, or knows that with effort and discipline you can get there. It is very humbling approaching a language and recognising that I need to taiho, I need to slow down.
Yes.
And move. It honestly took me more than a year to be able to walk up to somebody and say, "Kei te pia koe, how are you?" Like I would be walking up to them going, "Okay, it's kei te pia, it's kei te pia. What is it? Kei te pia koe." Okay.
Yeah, tawa, same for me. Yes, just to even practicing those few sentences. Yes, and lovely. The late great Dr. Te Wharihuia Milroy said, "Mai te mata o te pene ki te mata o te arero." Let's take it from the tip of the pen and put it on the tip of the tongue. And what he's saying is, it's the speaking that keeps the language alive. So I hold that very deeply. And given that Te Wharihuia and Timoti, Tā Timoti Kāretu gave me my name, I hold them deeply in my heart.
Tell me about getting given a name. So
that was
atamira, te atamira.
Te atamira means the stage, and it was 2017, and I was at a conference called Te Puna o Te Ki, which is a gathering of speakers. It's run out of AUT Te Arapautama, and a gathering of speakers who talk on all sorts of different kaupapa. These kaupapa can be everything from the translation of moana into Te Reo Māori, to breast cancer research, to mental health, you name it. Really wide variety of kaupapa. And I was there with my friend Joe, who's been my language dear friend and language buddy for many, many years.
You need a language buddy, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we were the only two Pākehā there. Anyway, we're having a paramanawa, our morning tea, and Te Moti says from across, so he's over there with Te Wharihuia. He says, Jennifer, haere mai. I'm like, you know, when you admire people's, it's been summoned, but you also like deeply admire somebody, they're like,
yeah, I do.
He mātanga Māori rāua, te tokurua rā. And he said, right, we've decided it's time you had your name. And I went, what? He said, yeah, Te Atamira, pai te rā? I'm like, what? He said, yeah, ka pai kua tau, that's decided. Ko te Atamira, tēnā koe te Atamira. And I sort of walked back with this kind of, oh, my heart was so full. Of course, I felt utterly kind of not worthy, but, and I've said this before, I had a kōrero with Hammy Kelly about this. I see what they did there. Ko takoto te mānuka. They laid down the challenge to use my time on the stage, and I get a lot of time on the stage, not just the stage where I act, but I speak at things, I get time on the stage.
Aye.
And to use my time on the stage to champion Te Reo Māori. So I take that challenge up to honour those two amazing men and to honour the language. So even though I'm often in fully Pākehā situations, ko taku reo tuatahi ko Te Reo Māori. So my first language will be Te Reo Māori.
Meaning the language you speak first, the language you bring first.
Yeah, so I'll open everything, even if I'm teaching a workshop with Te Reo Māori. And so it's heard and normalised and
valued and loved and honoured and given space.
Yeah, so every time I do that, I go, I'm living up to the name that I have.
Names can be powerful like that, can't they?
Very powerful.
What we call people. I love the idea of bestowing names on people. My friend Tuoka, who's been a guest on this podcast twice now, when her and her husband got married, they got given a new name.
Oh, how beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It really is very special. So all my Māori friends, or when I'm working on kaupapa Māori, I'm just Te Atamira. I'm not Jennifer, I'm Te Atamira. So I'm not Jennifer Te Atamira, ko Te Atamira taku ingoa tuatahi, that's my first name.
Wow.
Te Atamira Ward-Lealand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And powerful and cool and amazing.
Yeah, and it's really weird when I go back into kaupapa Pākehā because I'm like, oh, and they're going, Jennifer, I'm like, oh, I have to do a little kind of, right, we're in this kaupapa now. So I'm immensely grateful and have a tremendous amount of respect and love for that, and for all my teachers who guided me over these years.
Yeah, and is it tauiwi forever? I'm like, student forever. I'm going to be learning.
Tauira
forever.
Absolutely, yes. Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, me particularly, but...
No, always. We all are. Yeah, there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn.
In life, and to be actively engaged in some form of study, I've heard is very good for our health as we age, mature, grow. So can I ask you, did you say you were 60? Is that?
Yes, I'm 60, absolutely. Yes, I turned 60 very late last year.
Yep.
Yes.
And how tell me how you this po of 60?
I just love it. Look, I've said this before too, but it's so true. When I was in my 30s, I went, oh man, you're so in your prime. And then I got to my 40s, I went, now you're in your prime. And then I got to my 50s, I went, oh, what was I thinking? Now I'm in my prime. And now I'm in my 60s, like, oh yeah, okay. I'm in my prime. So
is there a pattern here?
I don't know. Maybe it's just that I keep getting all these incredible new things, and really that's been my mantra. Is I always work with great people on great creative projects. I never know what they're going to be, but that always happens. So I have a great faith in that I don't have an anxiety about things not turning up. One door closes, another door will open. You don't get that job, that means that door's open for that job. And because, as I said, I have a number of strings to my bow. So if there's acting on screen and stage, there's directing on mostly stage, but most recently a bit of screen. The whole voiceover, speaking, emceeing, and then, of course, in the last 4 years, intimacy coordinating. So that was probably my fourth epiphany. Yeah.
So because intimacy coordinating, dun, 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 dun. I'm imagining. Tell us about intimacy.
I think the most easily graspable way of understanding what an intimacy coordinator is by comparing us to what stunt coordinators do. They take down a moment of a stage or screen, physical violence, and they break it down into beats and components so that you create a really authentic, realistic fight.
That is also safe.
That is also safe. So we do that with intimate moments, and it's not just for things of a sexual nature. It could be anything. It could be anything from bathing a frail elderly person, giving birth, breastfeeding, anything when you're in the physical space of somebody else or yourself. So once you start thinking more laterally about that, then you can see that these things are, they are of our intimate self. They're things that would normally be private.
In private.
In private.
Yeah.
Yes. So...
what led you to that? Like, how did that door open?
Look, for 35 of my 40 years as an actor, we've always mostly had to look after these things ourselves. And as president of Equity New Zealand, which is our performers union, we'd been having a lot of anecdotal evidence right through. Around 2015, we held a big meeting to discuss this work, sex and nudity on stage for actors. It was one of our most well-attended meetings. And it was very clear that people were having poor experiences in auditions, in on stage, on screen. Power dynamics coming into play, actors always feeling like they had to do these things or they wouldn't get the gig, and people being put in really vulnerable positions. And so we started doing some work on that and putting some guidelines together. Around 2017, I got an email from Ita O'Brien, who's an intimacy coordinator in the UK, saying, look, I've looked all over the world, and Equity New Zealand is the only union that has any kind of guideline for this stuff. Can we talk?
Wow.
And by that stage, I was just sort of starting to understand what an intimacy coordinator was, because as a title, it's relatively new, so 6 years. However, all of this work stands on the shoulders of those who've been working in the consent area, the fight choreography area, the movement choreography area. So this as a profession, yes, it's been called an intimacy coordinator, but its sort of genesis probably started a long time ago. So anyway, long story short, she came out to New Zealand and did a training, of which I was one of the participants. And it was in that workshop where we were working on a scene and I was being an actor in this situation, that I had a process and a structure and a third party present to keep the work professional and not private. So often actors are told to, the culture has been, go away and sort this out by yourself. Just go for it, improvise in the moment, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Or silence, no communication at all. And probably 90% of the actors I've worked with have had some kind of challenging experience, at the very least, from no communication to the very worst, a sexual assault, and everything in between. In every art, in every performing art, right through to opera.
Wow.
Yeah. And so anyway, I had this experience. And I finished my scene with a young man who was probably 25 years younger than me. And it was so clean. There was no baggage around it. There was no self-consciousness. We both knew what we were doing. We knew what our characters were. We knew all the beats. We'd broken it down. And it became this beautiful, much deeper experience. The intimate moment had a narrative to it, instead of what has been act, and then weird intimate moment, and then act. It had beautiful flow. We kept acting all the way through.
And I guess there's something about that approaching, because sex is private and intimate, because our culture doesn't talk about those things. Like if you're having sexual difficulty with your husband, wife, you moan about it to your friends, you kind of joke about it a little bit, like ha ha ha, whatever. Who do we actually cordial with around these deeply personal issues? So then I guess that just lack of clarity or lack of communication just translated into the profession. I can see how that could happen and how it would be profoundly unhelpful. Like I remember doing just a tiny bit of acting, and when I lived in England we were doing a production, as you do at school, and there was a kiss, and you're 15 years old, you've not kissed anybody, and you're just in the dark, and it's emotionally fraught because what do you do? And even back in New Zealand when I was 17, there was another, we did cabaret. There's a I think I played Fräulein Prost. I was a prostitute, Fräulein something. Anyway, and it was like this very weird moment, the boys' school and the girls' school, and it leaves you kind of feeling icky, or like people are laughing and
that they're looking at your sexuality instead of the characters.
Yes,
yes,
there's no clarity.
Yes, this deep self-consciousness. We don't want to. It is icky to bring our personal sexuality to something that characters are doing. So this just takes all of the sting and heat out of that. So we can actually even talk about the choreography of the kiss. We can do it with hands first to actually understand what's going on for these characters and break it down. And then you've got things to think about instead of, here comes the kiss, oh my God, what does he think, what does she think, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of having to look after each other.
Yeah.
Plus you get power dynamics, you get someone who's wildly more experienced than somebody else, you get age differences, you get experience differences.
Or perhaps somebody's had a terrible sexual experience and then now they're acting, that actually to understand their context as a human being could be very helpful for them to be able to do their job well.
Absolutely. And also crew, we just have to look at our statistics here around sexual assault or sexual trauma, and 1 in 3 New Zealanders has experienced something like that. So we just take care around it. We it's not like we're dancing on eggshells. We just make sure consent is at the heart of everything, that we all know what we're doing, and then we add all of the sauce that makes it really authentic. The breath and the sounds and the whatever we need to do for the content of that particular.
Since
scene.
You've done intimacy coaching, what have you noticed? Like how has the environment, the atmosphere changed?
It's been incredibly helpful for especially young actors who are new to the work. As you rightly said, you cannot assume what anybody has or hasn't experienced, and it's not my business to ask people that. However, I can, in my conversations with performers, find out if anything is going to be difficult or challenging, and talk them and give them a structure around to help them with that. It's been a great relief for people to actually talk about it. For many directors, it's a great relief.
Do you think you could have done this as a 30-year-old?
No. Well, yes, if it existed, but I don't think I'd bring all of my years as an actor and a director and a parent and all of that to the work.
Yeah, technically, yes, of course you could do
and I've
it.
learned a huge amount. And remember, I'm starting a whole new branch of my career that hadn't even existed when I was a young actor at, 56. So I'm studying, I'm learning, I'm taking classes, I'm practicing, I'm being mentored, I'm doing all the paperwork. It's a department often of one, but when I walk on the set, I know so many people. Either I've been there as an actor, or the film whānau or the theatre whānau, we know each other. So I bring all of that to the work, and I think it also gives the work legitimacy too. But New Zealand is amazing. The film industry here and the stage industry, we've taken it on really quickly because we see that it's helpful. We see that it works for actors.
So good.
Yeah.
I see your posture as a life learner, because you could say you've got a Queen's Award, haven't you?
Yeah.
King's, 2. You've got 2. Can you tell me what they are?
So 2007 I got an ONZM, and then 2019 got a CNZM, Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit.
And New Zealander of the Year, Kiwi Bank New Zealander of the Year.
Yeah, that was 2020, yeah.
So looking from the outside, right, with your established career and your awards and your recognition, I would say it would be natural for somebody to assume that you're not learning things anymore. You're just telling everybody what is what. Do you know what I mean?
No. Oh, God, no. No, that would be terrible. Then you'd have to stop. Nobody knows everything. I'm always learning. You know, I'm doing some scenes at the moment with working with some young people, you know, one who's disabled, one who's trans, and that's a new experience for me. So I'm going to make sure that I do enough work around that so that I can be the best ally for them on set. And never stop. Oh my God, never stop.
But do you see how I think in our culture we're so often driving towards this point, like when I get here, when I've got this job, this house, this mortgage paid off, this holiday, this degree, then I have made it. It doesn't feel like you live your life like this towards this point in time.
No, I don't think so, and I don't know any actor who could. I don't know any actor who knows how to plan a career. Careers just happen, and you hopefully make some good choices, and you hope see some things come along that spark you and go, oh, that looks interesting. Yeah, I'm going to try that. I've never directed a short film before, but somebody sees something in me. Scary. Okay. I don't have to know everything. I'll learn a lot of that, and I'll surround myself with people who do know a lot of stuff, and I can learn from them.
So again, you're not approaching things as an individual, like I will make my way and get to the top of this mountain.
No. I exist because of the people around me.
I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. And what obviously that your love of learning, where do you think your love for your zest comes from?
Golly, I think I've got some really helpful genes from both sides of my family. Like my dad died in 2019, and the couple of years before, tried to extract some stories around his acting career before he left New Zealand. And a lot of his long-term memories had gone around that. But when he died, we found his archives, and he kept every review.
Wow.
And he'd got great reviews and all the dates and everything like that. Like, good on you, Dad. Details man. And so I think that spark, I think he was really thrilled that I pursued it as a career. So that spark, I think, for creativity came from Dad, and also a tremendous organised brain. We were like two peas in a pod. So my kind of time management, creative side are quite equal.
It's pretty powerful to have both of those,
yes,
though.
Yeah. But I also
puts you at a great advantage.
I also have that on my mum's side, because my mum's family are all musicians and lawyers. So mum's a pianist. My grandmother was a singer, my grandfather was a singer and a pianist, and my aunt's a violinist and all of that. So, but also grandfather was Lord Draftsman at Parliament for 35 years, Chief Lord Draftsman. So he's got that, brain. In fact, I open my desk drawer, sometimes I go, it's just like grandfather's drawer. So I think that combination of creativity and sort of maybe an incisiveness perhaps come from my parents. And also my tipuna arrived in 1823, so the second Wesleyan missionaries up in Te Reo. And of course they had to learn to speak Māori because they were living in a completely Māori area, no Pākehā at all for 20 plus miles in Kororareka. So I also see them, I see myself following in their footsteps in learning the language.
It's quite lovely, isn't it? It's almost a returning to the language for you. Yeah, it's beautiful. Can I ask about challenges as far as ageing goes? I recognise that for some women, the script we have subconsciously adopted through our society is that once our sexual viability decreases and our reproductive viability decreases, there's not a lot of option or room.
Yes, it's particularly prevalent in our industry, of course. So I say thank God for the stage. I think on screen our opportunities really decrease as a woman, and actually, not I think, it is. We've got International Federation of Actors very good research to show that. often you can disappear at 40 and return at 60 as a grandma, or your grandma's at 40s, and I've played mothers of, actors 11 years younger than me. So aspirational casting, don't you know, Petra? Yeah.
I've seen some figures where the person was the wife one year and then the mother of the person who
Yes.
they were the husband to who another year.
But I think, the stage is often the last bastion of the complex female. So I've had probably some of my best roles in my late 40s and 50s. And to get a film role with somebody who is still in her mid-50s, so I did a film called Vermilion, where somebody has sexuality and following her creative career and all of that, how lucky, but how rare. Yeah, so I haven't personally felt a lack of opportunity in this live performance arena, and because I'm hopping around doing all sorts of other things as well, perhaps I don't feel it so well, and I don't care enough about trying to get the best television role, so I don't let that affect me, I guess.
Can we talk about complex female character?
Well, you can get probably some of the best plays I've ever done have been in the last, that have taken me everywhere emotionally, from the dark to the light and everything in between. And those are the right, especially black comedies are one of my most favourite genre. Well-written, incisive stuff that has life experience behind it, that has wisdom, that has all of our human frailties behind it. I love those.
Do you think that we have a vision of a complex female character in our everyday life, that we are able to embrace?
Do you mean do we see these reflected?
Yes, do we see them reflected, or do we, I guess, aspire to be a complex female character?
Well, I think we all are complex female characters in terms of what we see regurgitated to us are perhaps tropes and ideas of womanhood. If I can sometimes get a script, and don't get me wrong, we have some amazing writers in this country, but often what gets through, what actually ends up being on the screen, is often can be a little facile or one-dimensional. So I can look at it and go, oh, here's a controlling bitch character. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'd rather do a play, where I can really dive into this person and have a good story. So I'm just not so keen to uphold those kind of things anymore. I think it's quite rare for an older woman to get something that actually uses everything of themselves.
Yeah. And I quite love the fact that something I'm definitely going to take away from our kōrero today is to go to the theatre.
Yes, because in the theatre it's a visceral experience often.
Confronting a little bit sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But, I've done some extraordinary characters, or been in plays with everything's just gone with these characters, and had someone come up to me afterwards and go, "Oh my God, that's my Auntie Mary," and I'm thinking, what? Truth is stranger than fiction. People have wild experiences in their lives, and when you connect with them on stage, when something is done so authentically on stage, you are changed.
Yes, and we go to concerts, don't we, to have these emotional experiences, to be drawn in and drawn out and express this part of ourselves. And I think maybe the stage is the same, because when you talk about seeing characters mirrored, I want people to lead the way. I want to see complex female characters, as Amanda Billings' T-shirt would say, let's...
Strong female character.
She says strong female
character.
She does.
Yeah.
We could reprint complex female character as well. Yeah. Because there's nothing bad about complexity. Complexity is good.
Complexity is great.
It is.
Who wouldn't want to be complex? Isn't complexity part of being human?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, so this aging thing in terms of me as an actor, I'm not interested in shutting down my complexity to fit into a boring narrative. I would much rather use my skills in things that make my heart sing.
For sure. As a woman, ageing, how are you going?
I'm going well. It was great to get through menopause. God.
Tell me, how was your menopause?
My menopause, and I ask that to my friends all the time.
Yes.
Nobody ever used to talk about that. I'm like, hey, you're 52, you're full in your menopause, how are you going? The thing that drove me mental was, like, I have a very sharp memory. And I think in that, going through menopause, and I was playing some really big roles, so it's like carrying a book in your head, and I just had to work 10 times harder to remember that. And it really, really affected me. Like, I was going to the doctor and saying, I can't be like this, I can't be like this. You know, I've got these plays to do. And I was doing them, but it wasn't so easy. It's better now, thank God. So when I look back, I think I just had to work a whole lot harder, and I didn't enjoy that. But great now. I was saying to my younger friends who've still got their period, like, you wait, tra-la-la, no more period.
So good.
Yeah.
Was that the main thing, the memory for perimenopause for you?
Yeah. I think it was all done and dusted. I didn't have a massive, like, sweaty thing. Some night sweats, but not that kind of big heater that some people get. And I did say to Mum, what was your menopause like? And she couldn't exactly remember, which probably was a good sign that it wasn't too horrendous. But I think it's great that we talk about it now.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's quite natural.
Yeah.
And happens to half the population.
Absolutely.
So really,
yeah.
It's not a secret.
No, it's not a secret.
It is a bit of a mystery in some ways, but it's not a secret.
Yeah, but I think the more that we talk about people's experiences, hear stories from people, you can go, oh yeah, that's me. And I did do a little sort of digging around, you know, various health posts, you know, what did people find really good? Use some of those things. That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you letting your hair go silver, or do you play with your colour?
Well, it depends on my role.
Of course
often,
it does.
But definitely I've got this lovely white hair at the front, and Dad had really great white hair, and so did my grandfather on the other side. So I know it's coming. I just want it to come faster. So if I colour my hair, I don't ever colour this white. It's really just blending in with that white so that it's,
Kind of pizzazz. Has a certain sparkle.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to being fully white.
Yeah, same. Somebody said to me the other day, yours is ombre, did you dye it? I go, no, just the bottom's dark. I don't know why. It's just how it is.
Yes.
Top silver.
And I think
dark.
at the back it takes longer to go.
Definitely.
Yes.
Silvery.
Yes, I'm willing it to go silver.
And we were admiring your socks earlier and working out how we could get them on the podcast. Like,
I just got to stretch. Just had to do a stretch there.
And you seem very flexible. How do you look after yourself, can I ask? Because you're in superb shape.
It's often to do with what shows I'm doing, with how much time. But if I'm not working all day every day and all night every night, I will go to the gym, which is just around the corner. I refuse to drive to a gym, so and I do probably 45 minutes. Some running, some upper body stuff and some lower body stuff, and stretching. I just keep myself stretched.
Stretching is so good.
Stretching is good, and I've got a pretty bad back, so that makes me maintain that.
So pain galvanises action for you.
Yep. That's nice.
It is, isn't
Pain galvanises action.
Petra.
Bagust. Yeah. So that, and I like to walk. I like to eat good food. I live with two great cooks. I don't cook. I said to Michael about 10 years ago, he said, what should we have for dinner? I'm like, I don't care. Whatever you give me, I'll be grateful for. And then he went, you want to think about making? I went, do you want to do the finances or do you want to do the cooking? Guess which one he took?
He took the cooking.
And my stepmother lives with me too, so we're a lovely little triumvirate of me, Michael and Rula. And she's a great cook. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Yep, happy.
Awesome. Intergenerational living?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've had that for a long time. So for 20 plus years, my dad and my stepmom lived with us for 4 to 5 months of every year, which was great. So I had my children, me, Michael, my parents, and I've always loved that. And then we do a lot of family dinners with my great aunt, who's 95 now. So we are big on intergenerational stuff.
And where did that come from?
Love and and the ability to live together well. So a lot of people can't live with their parents, in that it just doesn't, the dynamic doesn't work. Doesn't mean they don't love them, but our dynamic worked perfectly and still works perfectly.
Cool.
Because of the nature of Michael and my career, both being freelancers, I think my parents made my life function really well for 4 to 5 months of the year. And they were really helpful. They'd, paint a side of the house every summer.
Wow.
And just take on things and be incredibly hands-on. And for me, it was like a bit of myself coming home when Dad and Rula would come home, because I'm very like my father. And I felt like I was my best self when they were there.
That's cool. I'm going to get my kids to listen to this podcast in the hope that I'm allowed to live with them.
Yeah, come on, kids. Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
I'll be very hands-on and I'll paint maybe a quarter of the house a summer. Depends how big the house is.
Just choose it. Yeah, and children, you can come home and do that too for your parents.
You can.
Just do a job. Don't need to be asked. Look around and go, what needs doing? I'm going to do that. And that's what my parents did.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's very cool. Do you think you've got an epiphany left in you yet?
You never know when an epiphany comes. That's why it's an epiphany.
I know. It's pretty exciting. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What would your 85-year-old self say to you today?
Keep moving. Look after your skin. Keep having adventures. Talk to your moko in Te Reo Māori only. But then so's the 60-year-old saying this to the 60-year-old.
That's good. Yeah.
If I have a moko.
I know. Please God. Anyway, we'll just leave that.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's my plan.
Wow.
So that child will grow up bilingual with her nanny.
So good. Do the kids know the plan?
I'm not mentioning having children to my 23-year-old or my 26-year-old.
No pressure.
I'll leave that up to them.
Yeah. That's good. That's very wise.
Yeah. Put it this way, I've kept some good toys.
Oh, yeah. And books?
Like the good toys and the books. But we have little children coming to our house too sometimes, so I can go to the bookshelf, there's some books.
That's nice. That's nice. And people talk about work-life balance, but I feel you have a reckless disregard for that kind of concept.
Oh, yes, I do, and I think I need more, but I don't know how to do it when things are so exciting. How do you get work-life balance?
Do you have enough energy to do what you're doing?
Yeah.
Well, then...
I think, yeah, just the way I worked as a young actor, I think I don't buckle easily. It's not to say I don't get tired, but I don't buckle. Like, I was up all night with my 95-year-old, and then I went to work, and I was chipper as, but I just pretended I was on a night shoot. Didn't tell anybody.
So good. Imagination's so marvellous, isn't it? And look, it's not a weakness to be tired.
No.
Perfectly acceptable.
I would like a few more sleep-ins and a bit more lying around with the cat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you'll just have to schedule those, won't you?
I will.
When you're ready, not a moment sooner.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Ka nui tērā.
Ai.
Ka pai, that's enough.
Kia ora,
Ko mutu?
yeah. Ko mutu.
Ka pai. O tēnā koe i tō kōrero mai, i o pātai mai, kia koutou katoa, e whakarongo mai ana ki tēnei punua pāoho, tēnā koutou, nō rere, e te kai whakataki, tēnā koe.
Kia ora. Mihi nui. Kia koe. Thank you so much for your sharing of yourself and your wisdom and your experience, and giving that as a gift to others who I think will be greatly encouraged and challenged. It's wonderful. Yeah, much appreciated.
Thanks, Petra. Ngā mihi.